You kept that one quiet, didn't they? 6 o'clock this afternoon, or 6 o'clock this evening. As I'm sure you all already know, Tyler Walker signed a 2-year deal with Lincoln City. First of all, isn't it going to be absolutely wonderful going into the first couple of weeks of the season, knowing that we don't need to sign a striker? Because it's every 6 months we go through this ringer, don't we? If we need a striker, we need a striker. It gets to deadline day, we bring somebody in on loan. And in recent years, the player that we brought on loan has flopped. We've got 2 strikers of our own now. And I think we'll probably go into the season with 3 and with a young player backing them up. But look, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who we've got, what we've got, where we've got. We're here to talk about Tyler Walker. I want your reaction as well. I'm going to be joined, I think, by Chris shortly. So what the facts, Tyler Walker? Well, look, we know all about him. It's pointless me sitting there trying to tell you he plays in this position or that position, or he's done this or he's done that, because you probably know everything. I mean, he came through the system at Nottingham Forest. He had a loan spell. I think there's one with Stevenage. He went and played for Bolton on loan. He scored 3 in 12, I think, in the Championship for Nottingham Forest. Went on loan to Mansfield. As we know, smashed it. I mean, he was the bane of our life, wasn't he, that season? He scored against us in the Checkatrade Trophy. His goals ensured that they were pushing us all the way to the end of the season until we won the title, and they didn't go up. Which, imagine not going up from League Two when you've got Tyler Walker and George Grant. The rest of the team must have been really garbage. And then the following season, he arrived. He came on loan, and he was outstanding for us. And let's be honest, the 2019-20 season was transitional for us, and it was a challenge for us, wasn't it? Because he came in at a time when we were going into that division with Danny Cowley and with George Grant and with Jack Payne, and we were trying to be exciting, and we put 4 past Southend, I think, and we'd had a good, strong start to the season, and people were thinking we're championship bound. And then we made the change, enforced, as manager Michael Appleton came in. Tyler Walker was one of the few players where there was no hiccup between the 2 managers. There was nothing. There was no break in his stride. If anything, he excelled under Michael Appleton. Remember the brace against Sunderland that we beat them 2-0 at our place. Superb. The goals against Ipswich. I didn't realise until I did my research sort of coming into this evening that Walker scored 6 in 5 goals before he was 6 goals in 5 games before he was recalled by Nottingham Forest. And that was a blow, wasn't it? He was recalled by Forest for the end of that transfer window. We brought Tyrese John Jules in. I've written an article where I've kind of said it was a little bit like having your Ferrari taken off you and being given a Ford Mondeo Ghia courtesy car. I don't mean that disrespectfully to Tyrese. He was younger. He was young. He was inexperienced. He was injured. He got injured. He wasn't Tyler Walker. Then he moved to Coventry. My understanding was it was around £1 million. I can't find anything to back that up online, so I might be wrong. It might have been £500,000, but he made a big move to Coventry City, and it hasn't really happened from there. He scored a couple of goals. He's been kind of in and out of the team. He had a loan spell at Portsmouth, which didn't really work for him under Danny. But I think, again, Portsmouth are a tough club to go into, particularly at that time. I think they've come on leaps and bounds since then. Last season, disrupted by injury. There was talk, and if you do kind of a little bit of research and look back, he actually tore his ACL, but not in the same way. It's not a full tear. It was a minor tear, so it healed on its own. He was only out for a couple of weeks. But he struggled, I think, last season to get in the Coventry side. When he was released, I don't doubt that there was 15 clubs onto his agent in this division. There's hardly any doubt about that at all. Teams were going to have wanted him. I know Bristol Rovers were one team that were linked with him in the past. Teams like Oxford United, teams like that are going to be linked with Tyler Walker. My understanding is that he has turned down more money elsewhere at the same level to come here. He feels comfortable at Lincoln City. I think that comes through in the fact that he's been constantly linked with us. Back on loan when he went to Portsmouth, he was heavily linked with us. There was talk that he'd been seen in the stands at a game, and the talk has never gone away. But it's always seemed like a pipe dream. Tyler Walker to me was the sort of player that somebody else would sign this summer. Bristol Rovers would sign this summer, somebody like that. For once, we're not the bridesmaid. For once, it's us. We've made the signing. I think this is a huge capture. it's so easy to say, isn't it? He scored 14 league goals in 26 league starts for us. He scored 20 odd goals for Mansfield. You get Tyler Walker firing as he was firing for us last time, and come January, there's going to be a club in the Championship going, actually, do you know what? He's proven himself. Here's a large fee. You would think that actually it also acts as a little bit of protection for us for Ben House, because Ben House obviously is highly saleable footballer, very talented, but all of the pressure is now not going to be on him. No, it's not all on Ben House. And if somebody comes in January with £750,000 for Ben House, and Tyler Walker's waiting in the wings or has been performing, has been coming on, it gives us that little bit of protection as well, doesn't it? Look, you don't want to just listen to me. I know that. You want to listen to somebody else as well. I'll go back through your comments in a while. But first of all, let's get the opinion of Stacey West, podcast co-host, Chris. Chris, how you doing, mate?
Hello. Oh, very well, thank you. What a pleasant surprise the news this evening has been.
That screen looks a mess, doesn't it, with him? That's a Chris Vaughan picture, by the way, just to point that out, Chris Vaughan. So anyway, there we go. Right, what's your initial thoughts then, Mr. Lamming?
Well, I'm guessing it's pretty similar to most people. It's just overwhelmingly positive. We've got ourselves a proven striker, some would say. We know he's had a few injury problems recently, but at this level, in this club, in this surroundings, he was successful. And if we can get an element of that back, we all know that's going to be positive. But not only that, I think I just caught the end of this as you were talking there. It just takes a bit of pressure off Ben House. We've got two senior centre forwards now who can play independently of each other if required or together. And it also means that if we do get a big bid for Ben House in the January or then next season, we're not kind of scratching around thinking, oh my God, who's going to be a direct replacement? And also the additional pressure that is going to be on that player. If it's a direct replacement, if you've got a replacement in the building already, you're in a really good place. It's just great news, isn't it? I think it's something we've all kind of secretly wanted. You know, we did the podcast a couple of weeks ago saying, apart from Tyler Walker, which centre forwards would you like or would you see coming to Lincoln City? But let's be honest, all of our number one choice for all of us would have been Tyler. That's why he wasn't allowed to be selected in that discussion. So it's just really good news, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I was just getting told off by Ryan. Ryan Whelan's a journalist for the Real EFL and co-owner of the Real EFL, and he's done the graphics for us so that we look a little bit more professional. He's just said to me, "You've used the wrong graphic." I'm so, yeah, it's a good signing. I've just sent the link actually to Chris, to Charlie and Ben, just in case they want to pop in and just say hello as well. So yeah, it's a great signing. Look, let's. Don't just listen to us. Let's listen to some of the other people who we've got watching the show at the minute. So Adam Butler just walked in the house and saw this. Fantastic. Delbs TV, big signing. Phil Dainty, when was the last time we got this excited about a permanent striker coming to the club? I think that's a really good point. I remember getting this excited about Tyler Walker coming to the club. I was relatively excited about John Marquis when he came permanently. I think that felt quite... But I think it's that getting a striker in early. It's just going to placate so many of the angry or anxious supporters, the sort of supporters that go, we've drawn two in pre-season, it's not good enough. Those are the people that this is going to send a real big message to. Balanced supporters, I think, we understand it's a big signing, of course, but I think it's a little bit different. We'll get a couple more. Brooke Davis, reckon we're going two up top now, Chris?
Probably not as plan A, but it gives us a very viable plan B. It also means, we expect Jovan to stay part of the squad. We know that Danny Mandroyu can play up there, has played up there with Ben House, and we think Rico can. But you kind of pushed me back on the podcast on Thursday, and rightly so, when I suggested that. Yeah, but they're not out and out strikers. They can play there, but it's not their strongest position. It's not their natural position. Whereas Tyler Walker, obviously, it's his natural position. So it gives us that option now to legitimately go 3-5-2 potentially, or 3-4-3, and they play one or the other. And it also means that off the bench, we're not just bringing, and let's imagine that House starts and Walker comes off the bench for a match. We're not just bringing a young lad on that's going to add some legs, or we've got to change shape. We can have a real kind of solid pro, a threatening player to come on in the closing stages of a game to be a real threat as well.
Here's a thought. would Walker sit either side of Ben House in a front three? I mean, he's mobile enough, picks the space, makes the runs. It could actually be, remember the likes of Simon Yeo and Franny Green used to play kind of either side. You used to get Ben Tomlinson was out on the wing. Because they play a narrow, if we want to go narrow and get the pushing fullbacks forward, technically you could get them both in.
I was going to say no directly, but you could do it the other way around. I don't think Tyler would be suited to that more creative role because they're not. It's not three centre forwards. It's two kind of wide attackers, isn't it, or wide tens.
Inside forwards.
Yeah, if you like. Yeah, I think, but I think Ben House is very capable of playing one of those roles. So you can almost play like. Let's imagine, just for the sake of argument, you play a bit of a hybrid, and you've got Mandroyu, Walker, and House. In certain situations in the game, you can play a 3-4-3 with House kind of tucking in next to Mandroyu, and then later in the game, or to change shape, you can go as a front two with Mandroyu as a 10. You haven't had to make a single substitution, and you've got that tactical flexibility as well. So I don't think in my opinion, Walker wouldn't play one of the wide roles, but House could with Walker ahead of him.
Very good. Let's get some more opinion. So Bri Fox, hope you're well, my friend. Says it sounds great. David Johnson, all the way from the US of A. He's going to be real hungry this go around, and that is actually a really good point, because he's coming here with a massive point to prove. And one of the reasons that he will have chosen Lincoln City over Bristol Rovers, for instance, and there's no suggestion Bristol Rovers were in for him, by the way, but if, over a team like them, would be he knows us, he knows here, he knows he's going to get a little bit of leeway with the supporters. He knows he's thrived here. He's 26. He's not 28. He's not 29. He's still a relatively young player. He could still have the best years of his career ahead of him, and he just needs to get himself back on track. Couple more comments. Steve Barton, great news. I think Ben's not sure quite what that is. I thought he had originally put the best podcast co-host when I brought you in, and now he's put that. Chris Keneally, don't say Man U around Chris Keneally. Evening, mate. They've kept quiet. They've kept them all quiet. Exciting season ahead for sure. He's pure quality as long as we can keep him fit. Ryan says, keep him fit and heart. Johnny Benton, after watching us at Kings Lynn last night, I'm glad we have a second and slightly different option up top. Not sure Makama or Kendall are ready for an extended run in the starting 11. I think that's quite a good point, actually, isn't it? Because we want Jovan to develop. Charlie almost certainly, whether one of those will likely go out on loan, one of those will likely stay, but you can't be expecting to put those players in if we got an injury, as we had 2 seasons ago when Freddie Draper had to come in when Dan Lundlow and Tom Hopper were injured.
Yeah, yes. Absolutely. I thought he was going to carry on. But yeah, you're right. One of them stays. My expectation, I don't know. There's nothing official here, but my expectation is that Charlie Kendall goes out on loan and gets much needed game time, and Jovan can be that player that sits in and around the squad, can be that kind of perennial backup, can play the EFL Trophy games and can be in and around the squad for the first 6 months, and then you can reevaluate his position in January, can't you? Absolutely. It certainly means that if one picks up an injury, it's not just kind of, it's not an ideal for the squad. It's probably not massively fair on a young player like Jovan to try and lead the line in a League One, and hopefully in a promotion or at least playoff chasing League One side, if all the stars align. Yeah, well, it's what we're setting ourselves up for, isn't it? I think
it is. More comments then. Richard Cross, I watched them at Lynn last night and I thought they looked really good, apart from goals, which hopefully he will bring. And it's hard, I think, to read too much into some of the pre-season games. I mean, I look back and we've had some terrible ones in the past, losing 3-0 at Gainsborough the year that we went up out of League, what was the old 4th division in 97-98. So you can't read too much into it, but at the same time, if you look shot shy in pre-season, sometimes that can also kind of flick across. Ben will be joining us shortly. He's just doing his hair, so we'll go through some more comments first of all. Connor says, evening, Gary. What a signing caught me off guard, which you all know because you've just read it. Luke Chapman says he's a Northampton Town fan. Thank you, Luke, for joining us. Jacob, good evening, Gary Hutchinson. I'm so happy to see him back. Tyler, yep, me too, Jacob. Me too. Richard's back on as well. He says we've done some great business in his opinion. We will come to Ben in a minute. There's just so many comments coming through, and he's still doing his hair in the green room. Matty Strickson, we will make him feel loved, and that will bring out the best in him. Some players just fit certain clubs. Playoff pushes on. They're coming thick and fast. I'm going to have to probably just pick out rather than go through every one. Kev Priestley, good on him. Not thinking about money, could be a good season for the Imps. I like that. What have we got going on? Gav Hughes, he's on. Massive signing, mate. Guarantees you goals. Shame Harry Anderson isn't going to feed him. That's kind of an in-joke, by the way. Ben says he can't pop in because he's cooking tea. You don't look like you're cooking tea to me, Ben.
It's on the go now, so
all right, well, we won't keep you. Give us your opinion then. What do you think?
I'm very, very happy with this. I know we said when we did our pod the other week, we said, that Tyler Walker was the sort of QI Claxon answer for sort of who we would like to see come in.
I think somebody actually say that he wasn't and that he was a realistic signing. I think one of us did. Was that? Oh, yeah, that was.
Yeah, but the thing is, you said that in public after you told us all in private that that we shouldn't say it. So.
Yeah, let's make that very clear. Just because.
This is great.
He has the illusion of power, doesn't he? And make the rules after he's told them all to us. It's disgraceful.
I've already had a message from Pete telling me to clip up what I said on the podcast and make sure that I play it. But anyway, Ben, go on. You carry on.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic news. Really is. I just think having two permanent strikers on the books now, one of whom has the pedigree and the history of Tyler Walker with the club. He's that quote unquote proven striker that people wanted to see. And the fact that he's come in and Jez has said it's a footballing decision and that he's come here without breaking our wage structure. That's really important. And I think ultimately, I agree with what you guys have said about him kind of having a point to prove and coming back and really, hopefully, making the best of his time here this time round. And permanent strikers on a 2-year deal doesn't really happen to us all that often, with names such as Tyler Walker. So very, very excited. Very excited.
Excellent. Thank you. Quick point for Chris to pick up on. Gordon Gardner needs to prove himself at League One.
I get the point because of his recent injuries. So he's definitely proved himself in League One. He did that for us. He did the traditional kind of went out on League Two, absolutely smashed League Two, came into us in League One, outstanding. Didn't get his chance at Forest that season. Went to Coventry and of course has been, well, I was going to say in and out the team, but primarily out the team and struggled from injuries. So I don't know if he has to prove himself to the level. I think he has to prove his fitness. I think that's the big thing, really. We know the quality's there. We know he's more than capable of playing at this level and being successful at this level. A lot of it's maybe some of those intangibles, isn't it? It's having that internal confidence that you can make that extra stride. You can sprint, you can turn on a sixpence, or do you have to nurse yourself around it because you've got that knee or that injury just in the back of your mind? It takes time to build that confidence up in yourself. I mean, Michael Owen said he never really got over his injury in that regard, and he never played the same at a kind of a lesser level. I completely get it after breaking my leg, and you're never quite the same again. Not physically, but just you don't put yourself in that first phase of games. You don't put yourself into the challenges. You don't. It's just in the back of your mind. So
what I would say about his ACL injury was that he was only out for a couple of weeks because it was only a minor tear. So It wasn't something that kept him out for 6 months or anything like that. I think I think the point still stands because it's in the back of your mind when you've done something like that are you now prone to doing it again? Exactly. And with 19 games under his belt last season, it's not ideal in terms of, if he was coming from 40 games or such. But do you think, as Gordon said, do you think the hype is over the top?
No. I think it's huge for Lincoln City. The reason that the reaction has been so positive that all of us have come on, none of us had plans to do this. It's like, right, can you come on in 5 minutes? And all of us go, yeah, absolutely, we'll be there in 5 minutes' time to do this because it's massive news. It's huge for Lincoln City for us to sign a player of his caliber. This time a couple of seasons ago, he was massively hot property, and he wouldn't have been on our radar. He'd have been completely out of our reach. And
I think the thing is, if he'd have looked to be coming in, if we'd have looked to be signing him last season, from Coventry, it would have been on loan. It would have been one of those signings where it's like, he's going to take up one of our loan spots. And the thought of bringing him back permanently would probably never have crossed any of our minds. But the fact, this season he's out of contract, and it's, again, just really exciting.
Cool. Right, well, let's have a look at some. Sorry, go on, Chris.
I'm just going to, on that point of an injury, so the best cure for that little doubt in the back of your mind is running the team. It's consistent games, and when you do that, you get 10 matches in a row, you get 10 starts in a row, or you get good minutes. All those worries start to subside, and then you kind of back to your old self then. And if we get the old Tyler Walker, we're going to be a real threat this season.
Right, let's have a look through some more comments. So Andrew Gray, I wonder how styles of play will pan out in terms of getting the best out of him versus Coventry and Portsmouth, not getting the best out of him, or best not being what we want. So I get that. I mean, I think in terms of style of play, I mean, we're a little bit more direct maybe at times than we were under certainly the early stages of Michael Appleton when he thrived. But for me, I think playing in the 3-4-3, I think it will suit Tyler. I mean, we weren't too up top particularly. I think as long as we get players in and around him, I think the fact is that although it'll be a kind of a front three or a flat front three, so to speak, rather than sort of anyone playing in holes, I think that the players can be interchangeable, get themselves close to each other. We've already heard Rico Hackett. He likes to pick up the pockets. He likes to kind of be dropping onto the edge of the area. I think we saw with Tyler some of his movement when he played for us was, he showed an awareness, I think, in terms of the movement and also in terms of those pressing triggers, I think, as well. I mean, you remember games against Ipswich where we won 5-3 where they just couldn't cope with him at all. So I think it'll be interesting, but I think that our style of play should suit him.
Yeah, I agree. I think his biggest attribute is his off-the-ball movement. We all know he's a good finisher, but all strikers can finish. It's a confidence thing with that. I think his what sets him aside from other players at this level is that intelligence off the ball. Now, Ben House is really good at that in terms of out of possession, specifically out of possession. But I think Tyler Walker, when we're in possession, is excellent and exemplary, really, at his movement off the ball. And what that's going to do, it's not only creating chances for himself. He's not going to pull defenders out of the way and make clever runs for him to score. What he's going to do, he's going to force the defensive line back. He's going to split the defensive line to create space then for other attacking players. He shoots his
players like Danny, players like Danny Mandry and Rico Hackett will be picking those up all day long. And I think Dylan Duffy's got a role to play as well. And it's what I think that you might hear now from, because there are some people who, there'll be doubters and they'll be going, you now need to provide him the bullets. Whereas in actual fact, football isn't a case of getting a winger to put a ball in the box for a striker to score from. It's not Ada McGeady and Charlie Wyke all the time. It's much more complicated, I think, than that in terms of how you construct chances. And I think that the players that we are bringing in are not the winger to put the ball in, the big man to head it in. We're not going down that route. We're going down a far more fluid attacking three, potentially someone coming up from the midfield as well. Alistair Smith making the late runs. It's going to be really, really fluid. And I think that that's interesting. And look, we're talking here as if it's Tyler Walker's an automatic starter. That ain't going to be the case. He's going to be quite a few weeks behind everybody else. I think when we go into the season, I personally expect him to be probably coming off the bench for the first couple of games, but the games are going to come thick and fast. We're going to have the League Cup, we're going to have the EFL Trophy. You're going to, they're going to pile up quite quick. They do through October and November, and I think that's the point where he's then going to start kind of coming into his own. So.
Do you think we'll see him on Saturday, Gaz?
I don't. He might get some minutes, but it would surprise me if he were to play a major part on Saturday, depending on what stage he's on with his training. Because footballers don't kind of leave a club, I don't imagine, and kind of sit around in their pants playing PlayStation. They're going to train. They're going to try and keep a degree of fitness. And we only entered pre-season training 2 weeks ago. So in theory, he's 2 weeks, maybe 2-3 weeks behind everybody else. So there's a potential, I suppose, to see him. It's a crowd pleaser. And I was playing pool with Chris last night and he said, well, my ticket's number 760 something. So, there could be a 1,000 Lincoln fans by the looks of things if the ticket numbering is for away fans as well. I don't know if that's the case or not, but there could be a lot of fans there. I think the club are going to want to get him out as soon as possible. And that's why there's the meet and greet at the club shop, isn't there, at 4:00 on Friday, which, I can't unfortunately make. So there we go. Let's have a look. This is quite good. Cornell, you need to read this. Unfortunately, unless Cornell is on YouTube, Cornell won't be able to read this or come on because I had to take drastic action. Anyway, there we go. Oh yeah, we've released our away kit,
Yeah.
by the way.
And it's really nice.
Do you think
I love
anybody's noticed the away kit?
So there's like a little bit of, we obviously have a little bit of a discussion in our group chat, and it was like there was a hint that there might be some news about a new kit this evening, and we all got quite excited about that, and then it just went a bit mental, didn't it?
Well, what's quite amusing is, and it's probably a little peek behind the curtain, I kind of knew that the club were going to do this staggered release, and it was because you get the press releases a little bit early, so it came up and I thought, shit, Tyler Walker, and it's like, but we want to do something with it. This can't get out. So I just thought, I'm not doing anything at all. I'm just completely leaving it. And Luke Thornall Media had said play along, so that's what I thought. Well, a bit of misdirection even to you guys. It's like, oh, there's a kit launch at 6 o'clock.
You bastard.
David Hunt not got so excited about signing for a while. Hope he can do the business like last time. Craig Harvey said, what are the odds on Champions? Matthew Smith says 50-1. Champions is very, very ambitious. Derby County are in this division, and if they are not in the top two, I'll be very surprised. Tyler Walker signing, in my opinion, doesn't make a huge difference to how I felt about our promotion prospects yesterday. There are still 3 or 4 players I think that we're going to be looking to sign. 3 or 4 positions where I think that we need strength, we need depth. But I think the way things are going, 10th is a bare minimum. That's where we were 11th last season. We've got our own nucleus. We are inevitably going to be stronger with Walker. At the moment, arguably, we are a little bit weaker at the back with Paul moving on, and pound for pound, you could say we've been slightly weakened. But again, we're expected to sign a central defender as well. But I just think the continuity means that we should be looking at finishing at least one place higher. Now, if our aim is 10, you're on the cusp of the playoffs at that point. So, do you know what? For me, we should perhaps be a playoff contender. Right, we just got to say goodbye to Ben. He's just put in the private chat that he's got to dip out and go and cook Rachel's dinner. Bye, Ben. He's gone. Right, so let's have a quick look. Adam says, are you going to tell Ben off for using the phrase proven striker? I let it slide. I let it slide this time round. These comments are coming through really thick and fast. Hang on. Jamie Clark, this is good. He'll be creeping into Pop World tonight to celebrate. Enjoy. Enjoy. Fantastic. Adam Room says, is Tyler Walker coming back to Lincoln City? Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Philip Dainty said, people were gutted we didn't get Stockton.
That feels like a very long time ago now, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Stockton or Tyler Walker, which would you?
Walker all day long.
Finally, Tyler is back and within our budget, says Jez. Keep fit, Tyler, and please don't take penalties. Why? Did he miss one then? Yes, Gary, I'm Cornell. Happy. Gordon says, scoff all you like, but that is the reality. I think what he's saying there is about people getting carried away. Gordon's always somebody that picks up on not the negative as such, but he's always the yin to the yang. So he's always willing to put the other side across and respect that. So he thinks that we're getting carried away. Dean says that Ben has got a potty mouth. He will have if he doesn't get dinner cooked. Stuart Wells, can I catch up with this in a bit when you finish? Missed most of it. You can. It's live on YouTube. So it will be on the YouTube channel. We'll get Charlie, our graphics guy, to do a graphic. He's brought himself in.
Hello.
He's brought himself into the chat. I haven't done it.
You mentioned my name. I thought it'd be perfect. Swoop in.
Well played.
I was going to introduce you, but now you can get.
You just did it.
Get effed. So what's your take, Charlie?
I happy. I just happy. I think this is a brilliant one. It galvanizes the fan base. It makes everybody happy. And I think that's what we want and what we need. It's another permanent sign-in. There's very few negatives about it. It's going to take a bit of time to get up to fitness, as Kennedy said in his little piece, but hopefully he'll do that at the back end of pre-season and we might see him on the 5th of August.
I think the big point as well is, and this does play into what Gordon said with respect to him, there is also a fear of building him up too quickly. So I think there is a little fear of us thinking he scored 14 goals for us in League One last time, 16 all in. He scored all these for Mansfield. It's Tyler Walker, who's a goal machine, whereas it's actually a player who for 2-3 seasons has kind of struggled a little bit for goals at the level. He's probably a little bit low on confidence. And so, yeah, it's a signing. It's a great signing. It's a permanent signing, as Charlie says. It's not a loan signing up front. It's great. 2 of our own strikers that we actually own that are decent. But as Gordon said, I think that there is probably just that, that other side of it, Chris.
Yeah, definitely. There's a very fine line, isn't there? There's the kind of the positive side of it, where he's going to come somewhere where he's going to feel appreciated. He's been here before. He knows the fan base like him. He hasn't got anything to prove in regard to. He hasn't got to prove anything to us. We already like him. He hasn't got to win us over. But how far do you go until that turns into pressure then to perform? And if we can keep on the right side of that threshold, I think it's going to be in a really good place. But it's a valid point. If we think, all of our problems are sorted now, we're going to score 1 million goals, we're going to win the league, and Tyler Walker's going to go and score 30 goals, then that's a bit of pressure, and obviously it's unrealistic as well. But if that's kind of that mentality that comes in, that's really heaping up the pressure on someone who has had a challenging year or two. But again, looking at the other side, maybe he just needs an arm around the shoulder. Maybe he just needs a little bit of confidence, needs to be loved a little bit, and to feel comfortable in his surroundings to get that little bit of a spring back in his step. And as a centre forward, it only takes 1 or 2 goals, doesn't it? And once you get those, if you get an early goal or 2 in the season, you're up and running then, and then it can hopefully positively snowball from there.
James Hoy says already the best summer recruitment since being in League One.
On paper.
Charlie?
Yeah, I think all of the transfers have been really promising. The fact that, again, it's all permanence at the minute. The loans are going to be used to fill in any gaps that we can't sign permanent players for. I don't see a single negative about it so far.
Better than Michael Appleton's first full summer, the COVID summer, when we brought in Adam Jackson and we brought in Brennan Johnson and we brought in Conor McGrandles and George Grant. And George Grant was already here, wasn't he? That's my error. But
that sort of depends on that kind of depends on how these do, obviously. But I think at the time, I think we are happier during this summer than what we would have been during that summer, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
I agree with you, mate. Completely agree with that.
I think we're going to set up a fight because Joe Briley says big signing. Joe runs the All Lincoln website. Dave Smithers says not for me this one. Looking at Joe and Dave, I think Dave might win in a fist fight. I think Dave's probably older, so we'll leave them to settle that one verbally. Craig Harvey is desperate for this. I think it's the second time he's commented. I think if we had Tyler last season, we turned some of those draws into wins. Interesting. I've noticed Matthew Moore says, what a signing for the Imps, 16 goals and half season in League Two. We actually got those in League One for us, not League Two. So he's already scored them at this level. Look forward to see if he can reignite that form. Gav Hughes, away from Walker, who will be captain, do you think? Paulie O'Connor.
Yeah, Paulie.
Yeah, good. We've answered that. Let's have a look. Matthew Moore. Certain loanee for us last year was a bit of a flop, but smashed it for Plymouth last season before he got injured. Just because he's struggled at Coventry Portsmouth doesn't mean he can't reignite his form. It's a good point.
Morgan Whittaker, great point. Yeah.
Yeah, really good point at all. Dave's laughing. I wonder if he's now wondering whether I should have pitched him in a fight with. I think Joe's 16, so maybe didn't know to pitch Dave. I didn't know to pitch Dave in fights when I don't know him. So sorry for that, Dave. But there we go. Steve Turner says thought it might happen when Gary only gave it a 10% chance. Chuffed, yeah, on the podcast. Another question. We're taking questions now. We've got 100 viewers online at the minute, so thank you very much for that. Nearly as many people as watch Coronation Street, I think. Daz Reed, chances of signing Matty Virtue.
Oh, that's a good question.
Somebody else a little bit further up. Oh, it was actually Daz again. Chances of bringing Matty Virtue back.
We discussed this a little bit last night, didn't we?
We did,
yeah. It's a really interesting one because his situation's quite unique. So normally if you've got a player at a club that's in the last year of his deal, there's always maybe an accepted value placed on that player. But because they had an option on his contract, but he was, of course, clearly unwanted by the club this time last season, it makes complete sense to activate that option, which they did at Blackpool. But it means that valuing that player is a little bit more subjective, because it's, well, what value do Blackpool place on him? You know, if he's going to be part of their squad, then you're going to put a far higher value. If it's just someone you want to get a little bit of a fee for because you activated a year on his deal, I think it's rather than saying, well, this player's played X amount of games and he's got this amount of experience, therefore he's worth within this ballpark and this ballpark. I think the signing of Matty Virtue comes down to whether our valuation, or whoever his suitors may be, and Blackpool's valuation align. But that could be, for me, that could be 100 grand. It could be 10 grand, because it depends on how he fits in at Blackpool, really.
I personally think I can't see us breaking the bank for Matty Virtue. Now we've got Alistair Smith and Ethan Arahan. And I think if we do sign Matty Virtue, or indeed pay cash for players from this point onwards, it's a real signal of intent. Because right now we go into the season, right now, tomorrow we kick off, we've got a squad that finishes inside the top half of the table, in my opinion. Right now as we kick off, we've got a back three, we've got cover at right wing back, we've got cover at left wing back, albeit shuffling people around, Rowan kind of centre back at left wing back. The only position probably we don't have the cover in is central midfield, but you would then pull Lass across, TJ. So right now we kick off. So if we're then now going to be signing players on top of that for cash, that's going to basically say that some of the people that are not getting in the side are going to be cash buys, or are going to be players that we consider to be first team. That would be a serious statement. And at that point, I mean, this is a statement today. Where we go from here over the next 3-4 weeks into the season, because bear in mind, it will go towards the transfer window. We might be about to make a real statement of intent. And if we were to sign Matty Virtue, a midfielder that should start 95% of games for 90% of League One teams, that would be massive. When you've got Ethan Arahan, who should start 100% of games for 100% of League One teams, and Alistair Smith, who slightly different, maybe more attacking midfielder as well. So,
So in terms of, what are the chances of a signing? Don't know. I don't know. I think it's definitely, we know Mark Kennedy's interested. We know that Matty enjoyed his time at Lincoln. I think it very much depends on how much is he going to play at Blackpool and who else could be in for him. And Blackpool will just, you'd expect from a business perspective, if they've got more than one team in for him, which you'd expect it to be, even if one of them is us, you'd expect them to play a bit hardball and just kind of pit us against each other for a bit of a bidding war, really. You'd expect them just to accept the highest offer. Otherwise, that you wouldn't have extended his contract by a year for any other reason than just getting a bit of cash. So it would make sense for them to get as much cash as they could.
So James says, and we'll wind up in a minute, because obviously I said we'd pop on for 10 minutes and it's been 38 minutes now. James says it feels like MK has been afforded whatever he needs financially, wherever it's coming from. Does that ring true with you, Charlie?
Yeah. Well, to an extent, I think he's being given a load of options, and I think he's got his wish of what he specifically said last year. I keep on banging on about the fact that they're all permanents, but he's got his wish of not just having a loan squad. It's considering we had 7 last year, or at a 0.7. So he's really being given that option. So the wage budget has quite clearly been increased. Transfer budget, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, is Rico the only one we've actually paid a fee for so far. Am I right in saying that? Yes. Yeah. Because all the others have been end of contracts. So
yeah, they have.
And obviously we don't know what the fee it will have been for Rico. I will assume it's not exactly going to be a bank breaker, but obviously we don't know what the budget was in the first place. But I think he's definitely been given a good enough wage budget, and then obviously the transfer budget, time will tell as to whether or not he's been given a decent enough transfer budget to be able to add extra additions later on as well.
Well, what I would say on that is, I don't think we should ever underestimate the board, and that's Clive, that's Harvey, etc. Remember, we've got a lot of new influence on the board now that we didn't have probably a year and a half ago, and it could be very much, I think, recruitment comes from the top down. A manager doesn't go, this is what I want to recruit, and the board go, yeah, you can do what you want. The way that I think our club runs, is that the decisions are kind of made as a collective. So my opinion would be that owning many of our own players is something that's not purely driven from the dugout. I think that will be driven from the boardroom as well, particularly with the amount of American interest that we have now on the board, or we have around the club. And I'm not just talking Harvey and Landon, I'm talking about the other guys that came on board as well. You know, American sports is very much based on owning your assets, isn't it? And having your own assets at the club. So I think that could well be something to consider. Let's just have a look at sorry, go on, Charlie.
No, I was just going to say, I think something to note, actually, and I'm kind of contradicting what I've just said, so I might keep my mouth shut. But base from the most recent, they are in the most recent supporters board minutes, so people can have a look. But the budget is said to be sort of an upper lower mid table side. So if the playing budget is still going to be about the same. Now, we may have had extra investment in the summer that may go towards that, and that may fluctuate, as we know. But the basis was it was still going to be the same playing budget level as what it was before. But then if for those that play Football Manager, FIFA Career Mode, anything like that, obviously you can move your transfer budget and your wage budget around. You can sort of fiddle around with that. So that's potentially what's been done to really make sure that we're getting more permanent end of contract signings and fewer sort of loan fees, transfer fees, that sort of thing.
Yeah, you often hear that referred to a lot more in the Premier League these days. So when certainly the elite clubs are going after players, you very rarely hear talk of just the transfer fees, because you often hear the whole package. So how much is wages plus transfer fee going to cost the buying club? And it's that whole package. And that's how all transfers are done. It's what's the cost of that? And if you can afford to get a player on a free contract, but that means you can afford to pay an extra 200 or 300 quid a week to that player because you haven't paid for them. It's the same total output from your budget, isn't it? So yeah, really good point. So yeah, like you say, they were in those supporter boards minutes, and that was interesting. I think at the time when we was in that meeting, it was we were kind of thought, fair enough. It's not going down. Happy as Larry. Next,
couple more comments.
There may well be more that we don't know about. Who knows?
Couple more comments before we wrap up. Suim says, Matty doesn't look happy in the Blackpool videos. I did offer Clive I'd sell a kidney as I don't need to buy Matty because I don't need both of them. That's fair enough, Sue. Very good indeed. I'm sure Clive is not into organ farming, but if we can find anyone that is, we'll give it a go. Kev, hope you're well, pal. Sometimes a club just suits a certain player. Walker was at his best in an imp shirt. At this level, he has 100% support here, which will help. He's confident immensely. And I think that's just about it. Let's finish on Phil Kime. Could be a perfect sign in this.
Keyword could. I think it's got all the potential of being a successful signing, but nothing's nailed on. But it absolutely could be perfect sign. Just as Kev said, sometimes the player just needs the right environment, and what better environment for Tyler Walker than Lincoln City?
Right, well, thank you, Chris and Charlie, for joining us. I really appreciate you coming on at short notice. Just to recap, everybody, if you joined us late, if you're living under a rock, if you've, been out of the loop for the last hour. So Lincoln City have signed former imp striker Tyler Walker on a 2-year deal following his release from Coventry City. That's it, really. Oh, and there was a new kit. Just quickly, lads, what do we think of the new kit? Because we keep forgetting that. What do we think of the new kit? It looks a little bit like the old sugar-free polo wrapper. But
God, it does. I haven't thought that. But yeah, it does. You're absolutely right. Well, I was about to say I really like it. I think it looks really smart. But now you got that in my head.
I tell you what, shall we have a look at it? Can I have a look at it or not? I don't think I've done it as an overflow, have I? Let's take everybody out just for 2 seconds. It's going to go quiet. Are you ready, people? So that's the new kit. What do you think, Charlie? Will you be buying it?
I'd buy them all anyway. Yes, I will. I like it. It's smart. It's kind of been forgotten about with the player wearing it, but it's a really smart kit.
Ben says new kit, thumbs up. He obviously likes it, but then he will spend his money on every kit as well. I wait till Dad buys me them at Christmas and then never wear them.
And I'm the opposite. I very, very rarely buy a current shirt, and I like the. I don't know whether I'll get it or not, but it's certainly there's a higher percentage of me purchasing this one than it has for a while for an away shirt.
Kieran McCabe says it's mint, which I quite like. That's got a great double meaning. I do. I like that. I like that a lot. Look, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you very much for joining us. Thank you to Ben, who joined us before cooking his dinner. I'm happy to report that Rachel has said that food has been served to a suitable standard, not a good standard, a suitable standard. We'll let Chris and Charlie get off. Thank you very much, chaps. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And up the imps.
Up the imps.
Up the imps.